good morning and welcome to another one of my music theory videos. Today we are going to be thinking about intervals. At grade 5 theory you need to know all of the intervals, compound or simple or anything in between. So let's get started. I have drawn some intervals for us to look at already on my board, so we're going to take a look through these examples and hopefully that will give you a clearer idea of what you are expected to be able to do. So there are two parts of an interval. Firstly, we need to know what size the interval is, how many notes between the two notes in our interval, and then we need to work out what type of interval it is. So we have the rules here. These are all the different types of intervals we can have. So let's get started with interval number 1. So when we're working out the size of our interval, we always need to go from the lower note. So sometimes they won't be written out as a chord like I have. We might have a D followed by a B flat, sorry. But it's really important that we always count from the bottom note. So we're going to check our clef, so treble clef for the first one. We're going to check our key signature, which is 1 flat, B flat. So let's get going. So we're starting with a B flat, and this note here is a D. So let's count up as if we were playing in B flat major, B flat, C, D. Great, so 3 notes between those. So we know that this is a third. Now, that's very good. So now we know how big our interval is. Now we just need to know the type of interval. So when we're working out what type of interval we have, then we have a table with 2 halves. So on this side, we can have seconds, thirds, sixths and sevenths. On this half of my table, we have unison, fourth, fifths and octaves. So because it's a third, we're looking at this side here. So we have to decide whether it's augmented, major, minor or diminished. Now, we imagined that we were playing with a B flat major scale, and we found that our D was in fact a note that we reached in a B flat major scale. So this one is quite easy. This one is just a major third. Now, if this interval were made any bigger, then we would have to go back to our table. So let's imagine that we had actually been given a D sharp, which made our interval 1 semitone wider. Well, we'd go back to our table, would say it's a third, therefore we're using this half, and I made my major third 1 semitone greater, which turned it into an augmented third. Equally, we could have made our interval smaller by turning our D into a D flat. So we went from our major third and we took it down a semitone smaller, which would have turned it into a minor third. So hopefully you can see how that works. Righty-ho, but let's stick with that being a major third at the moment. So next example, checking our clef, that's really important, bass clef this time, and checking our key signature again, 1 sharp, F sharp. So our interval is between a B and an F sharp. So imagining that we're playing with a B major scale, we're counting the notes, starting on B. B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp. So that's a fifth. And because F sharp major belongs to our B major scale, we are going to call it not a major fifth, but if we look over to our other side, we know that it is a perfect fifth. Great. So, next example, checking our clef, checking our key signature. This here is a D, and this here will be a B flat. So, imagining we're playing in a D major scale, we would play D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. So it's a sixth, but it can't be a major sixth because we have a B flat instead of a B natural, and a B flat does not belong to our D major scale. So it's been flattened by a semitone, which means it's been made smaller. So let's turn over to our rules. We know that it's a sixth, and we know that our interval has been flattened by one semitone. So it's been made into a minor sixth. So let's write that in. Okay. Now the next one, checking our clef, checking our key signature. So no sharps or flats, and it's a B because we're in treble clef. So let's count up from B to B. 1, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B. So 8 notes. And we know that in music, a group of 8 notes is called an octave. But we know that our B flat does not belong to a B major scale. So it has been flattened by one semitone. So let's look at the back. We've worked out it's an octave, so it belongs to this half of the table. And we know that instead of being a perfect octave, it's been made smaller by one semitone. So we know that it is a diminished octave. Diminished octave. Okay, so that's very well and good. What happens though when something has been lowered by 2 semitones, like this, like a double flat? Well, let's work out the size of the interval first. So treble clef, no sharps or flats, so it's between a C and an A flat, a D double flat. So counting up on a C major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A. So we know that it's a sixth. So let's flip back over. So here's our sixth. So we're using this half of the table. And we know that a major sixth would be between a C and an A, because an A belongs to our C major scale. But we have an A double flat, so it has been flattened not once, but twice. So this has led us to having a diminished sixth, which I'm going to write as dim. So you may be thinking, well, that's very well and good, but what happens if I can't imagine the scale of the bottom note? For example, our next one, D double sharp. I don't know about you, but I certainly cannot picture myself playing a D double sharp major scale. So what we can do is we can take our interval and lower both notes by a semitone and see whether that helps. But making sure, really importantly, that we still have a D and an A. So if I lower D double sharp by a semitone, I have D sharp, and A lowered by a semitone gives me A flat. Now, D double sharp is still quite tricky to imagine. You might not be able to envisage what a D sharp major scale looks like. So we can do the same thing again. We can raise both intervals again by a semitone, making sure that we still draw them as D and A. So we get the size of the interval correct. So D sharp lowered by a semitone leaves us with D natural, and A flat lowered by a semitone gives us A double flat. So now it's a bit easier. We can all imagine what a D major scale looks like. So we have D, E, F sharp, G, A. So we know that it's a fifth, and we know that it has been flattened twice. So we're looking for a fifth. So we're looking for this half of the board. We know that it's not perfect. We know that it is been flattened once and it's been flattened twice. So we know that that is double diminished. Great. And finally, you might remember that at the beginning of my video I mentioned the word compound intervals. So compound intervals are an interval that is greater than an octave. So here you can see, checking the clef, checking the key signature, that I have a C to an F. So that is middle C to F above it. That is greater than an octave. So we can approach this in one of two ways. Either we can move our C up the octave, writing the word compound, and we can work out the interval from there. So C, D, E, F. So that is a fourth. And we know that that fourth is found in our major scale. So looking at the other side, here's our fourths. So we know that it is a perfect fourth. So we can either write compound, perfect fourth, or we can count all the way up from C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. And we can write that it is an 11th. So, happy practicing at home, everybody. Keep yourself well and safe.